Good evening and welcome to the June 21st regular meeting of the Novi Board of Education. We thank you for being here with us tonight. I'm going to ask my fellow trustee, Mr. Mena, the secretary, to do a roll call vote, please.
Okay, Mr. Cook, I don't think he's here yet. Mr. Smith?
Here.
Trustee Hood?
Here.
Trustee Mena here. Trustee Murphy?
Here.
Trustee O'Connor?
Here.
Trustee Stevenson?
Absent. Absent with notes.
Yeah, she.
Oh, not here today, okay.
Yeah, she's not
Cross
here.
her out, but we'll see about Paul still.
Right.
Yeah, hopefully he'll join us. If you will all join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, well, we thank you. I'm going to turn to Dr. Matthews. We have a public hearing on our budget this evening. Dr. Matthews?
Thank you, Ms. Murphy. The state requires all school districts to adopt a budget for the upcoming fiscal year by June 30th. The process of adoption includes a notice for a budget public hearing, which must appear in the local newspaper at least 6 days prior to the hearing, and that the budget document, including the proposed property tax millage rate, must be available for public inspection. The public hearing on the budget and the property tax millage rate proposed to be levied support the proposed budget must then take place, and then the board adopts the budget. This year, the public hearing is scheduled for tonight at 7 p.m. as part of the regular meeting of the Board of Education. Notice of the public hearing appeared in the local newspaper on Thursday, June 14th, and the budget document was made available for public inspection at the Educational Services Building on June 19th. Following board adoption of the budget, the business office will post the budget on the district's website. So at this point, we have had the presentation of the 2018-19 budget last week. We have the proposed budget available for public inspection since June 19th. And we posted the notice of this public hearing. So tonight is the public hearing, and we would invite anyone who wants to make a comment on the budget up to the podium. And if no one is here, you have the authority, Ms. Murphy, to close the public hearing.
All right. Well, seeing no one approach the podium, we do have a few people here tonight, but they're mostly employees. We thank you for being here. And so we will close the public hearing and move on to the next item on our agenda, which is the approval of the agenda. I would entertain a motion, please.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Mena. Is there support? I support. Supported by Mrs. Hood. There's no discussion on the agenda, and there's no need for any changes. I would call the question. All those in favor of approving the agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Next, we have our first opportunity for comments from the audience related to... Oh, no, we don't. I'm skipping something. I apologize. Next, we have awards, presentations, and reports. Dr. Matthews.
Thank you, Ms. Murphy. The Novi Community School District was notified by the Michigan Association of School Boards that two of our board members will be recognized at the June 20th, 2018 Oakland County School Board Association and MASB Awards Ceremony. Don Watruba, Executive Director for MASB, and Cheryl McGinnis, the Oakland County School Board Association President, presented the awards. Will present the awards to Ms. Bobby Murphy and Mr. Dennis O'Connor. Mr. Dennis O'Connor. Ms. Bobby Murphy will receive the Award of Distinction, and Mr. Dennis O'Connor will receive the Master Diamond Award. Tonight, we would like to take the opportunity to express our deep appreciation and acknowledge their work and dedication as board members, and we continue to share their vision and voice about the future of Novi's children in their roles as board members, community members, and dedicated volunteers. Well, thank you, Mr. O'Connor, and thank you, Ms. Murphy.
Thank you. And Mr. O'Connor, you brought us, you were at
Well,
the...
on behalf of the Oakland County School Boards Association and MASB, I'd like to present you with your award of distinction.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Very much. Thank you. And last night you were honored. I take it you were at the meeting and received your honor from Mr. Watruba. Fantastic. And thank you for bringing back the materials on that so we know what's going on. So, yeah, that was just last night. Unfortunately, I had another commitment, couldn't make it, but I appreciate you picking that up for me very much. All right. Are there any additional comments?
There are no additional comments.
I don't think so. Okay, we will move on then to comments from the audience. This is the first opportunity for comments from the audience related to agenda items. If anyone would like to speak to the board, we'd ask that you fill out a green card and you come to the podium, and we limit your time to about 5 minutes, but I see no persons. I do feel like I should have commented, Mr. O'Connor, on your Master Diamond Award because I didn't, and people might want to know what that means. So can I just take a second real quick? So the Master Diamond Award is an award when when the board member receives your levels 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So completed all levels and a total of 14 200 level classes and a minimum of 528 education credits. So that is fantastic that you've taken the time to invest in that on behalf of this district and on behalf of the board. So I just want to voice my appreciation for you taking the time to do that. I know you're serving on that, the Oakland County School Boards Association as well. And we appreciate having a representative there.
Another year's service, as a matter of fact, last night, so.
Oh, congratulations. All right, so it's nice to have our voice represented up at Oakland County, and we appreciate Mr. O'Connor taking that on. Thank you. We've had Mr. Cook joined us this evening. Thank you for being here. We just need to note the time that he arrived for our minutes. Fantastic. Okay. Next, we're going to move on to our consent items. We have, Dr. Matthews, I will turn to you on that.
Thank you, Ms. Murphy. For the consent agenda this evening, we have the regular meeting minutes of June 14th and the executive session meeting minutes of June 14th as well for your approval.
All right. Consent items don't really require much discussion, so I would entertain a motion.
So moved?
It's been moved by Mr. Mena,
Support.
supported by Mr. Smith, that we accept consent items as presented. Is there any, I'll just call the question on these. There's just 2 minutes. If there's no changes that board members have noted. All those in favor of accepting the consent agenda items as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Same. Motion carries 6-0. Next, we have our personnel report. Dr. Matthews.
Thank you, Ms. Murphy. And this is a busy hiring season, and so Dr. Kinzer has been busy shepherding that process for us, and so tonight he will present the personnel report. Dr. Kinzer.
Thank you, Dr. Matthews. Tonight we do have 4 new hires, 2 retirements, and a resignation. First, our new hires, Megan Barnoskis. She will be a teacher, a math teacher at the middle school. Kendra Brenner, another math teacher at the middle school. Emily Lund, teacher at Parkview. And Megan Sergeson, counselor at Novi High School. We have a retirement, Lori Burkhart, special education teacher at NATC. A resignation, Melanie Greslick, an English language arts teacher at the middle school. And another retirement, Deborah Thomas, special education teacher at the high school.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. I would entertain a motion. Mrs. Hood.
I move that the Novi Community School District Board of Education adopts the personnel report recommendations as presented.
Is there support?
Support.
It's been moved by Mrs. Hood and supported by Mr. Cook. I would just like to say that I do have a relationship a little bit with Mrs. Barnoskas. She is my sister-in-law, well, my brother-in-law's wife's niece. I don't know if that matters, but just to let you know, I have known her for a while. I did know she was applying, but I wasn't involved in the process or anything, so.
And you will have no role in evaluating.
No, I will have no role in evaluating her.
Well, I'm sorry, I thought you were looking at me.
No, go
Oh,
ahead.
yeah, I just want to make a comment. Obviously we hate to see to lose personnel here, and I hate calling people out because I think all of these folks have brought a lot to our district, but I'm certainly going to hate seeing Mrs. Burkhart go, besides the fact that she did so many great things for some wonderful kids in our district. She also led the theater group at the middle school, and I'm not quite sure if this retirement means she's no longer going to do that or if she's going to continue that.
She would have the opportunity to continue to do that, but we are not sure at this point.
But she certainly will be missed, as well as the rest of these folks.
Mr. O'Connor.
I'd like to echo Mr. Mena's comments and also add on to that. She was a pioneer of sorts because she actually started the middle school, and I think she was involved with the high school theater boosters club as well. We've always talked about for years, how we have athletic boosters, band boosters, and she was certainly a pioneer in getting that started. Also, just comments. It's good with when we can that we are as fiscally responsible as possible, and I know we always try to do that, but I thought it was great to see that we had, over 150 people to choose from. So, we were able to get high quality candidate, I assume, with, at step ones and step twos. So that's really good to see,
Yeah, I really do think
especially in
that
the area of math.
we've had a lot of excellent candidates express their interest in us this spring.
Yeah, that was good to see.
Encouraging. Well, I would certainly echo you gentlemen's comments about Mrs. Burkhart, and I think she's been in every level of building as well, which is one of the few teachers that has been across our district in every level of our building, and certainly Ms. Thomas and Ms. Gresley will be missed as well. So, did you have something you wanted to add, Mr. Cook?
No.
Okay, all right. I will ask for a vote at this point. All those in favor accepting the personnel recommendations, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries 6-0. Next, we have our final budget amendment. Dr. Matthews.
Thank you, Ms. Murphy. On March 1st, 2018, the board approved the first amendment to the 2017-2018 general fund budget. The final amendment to the budget reflecting all the changes known at this time has been created and is presented to the Board of Education tonight. The 2017-18 final budget amendment was presented for information and discussion at the June 14th, 2018 board meeting and comes tonight for approval. As you know, with the budgets, we must establish a budget by June 30th, and then over the course of the year, we make amendments as necessary. We've had 2 amendments this year. This is our second amendment. This was presented by Ms. Minnick last week at our meeting. Ms. Minnick is here this evening if you have additional questions on that amendment. But if not, we would ask the board to approve that final budget amendment so we can begin the process of closing the books on 2017-18, although that will not take place for another couple of months as we kind of wait for bills to finish being paid in July and August.
All right.
I just want to say I apologize for not being here at the last meeting because I had a work conflict, but from what I saw in viewing the videotape, I mean, everything seemed pretty clean, pretty straightforward. So it was a good year and sounding close and quite close to projection. So it was good to see.
Fantastic. I'd entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that the 2017-18 final budget amendment as presented be approved by the Novi Community School District Board of Education per the attached resolutions.
Support.
It's been moved by Mr. Smith and supported by Mr. Cook. Is there any additional discussion or questions about this? I would echo Mr. O'Connor's comments that it was pretty straightforward, and we appreciated the presentation at the last meeting a week ago. Okay, if there's seeing nothing further, we'll call the question. All those in favor accepting the budget amendment as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries 6-0. Next, we go on to our preliminary budget for next year. Dr. Matthews.
Thank you, Ms. Murphy. The state requires that all school districts adopt a budget for the upcoming fiscal year by June 30th of each year. The proposed budget document for the 2018-19 fiscal year has been prepared based on projections and estimates, including student enrollment, which will be known at a later date. The proposed budget document is presented to the Board of Education tonight for review. The budget adoption process for an upcoming fiscal year must include a public budget hearing, a notice of such public hearing, which must appear in the local newspaper at least 6 days prior to the hearing, a budget document made available for public inspection, including the proposed property tax millage rate, and board adoption of the budget in the form of a 2018-19 General Appropriations Act resolution. Once the public budget hearing has taken place, the board adopts the budget. The public hearing took place earlier this evening. The notice appeared in the newspaper on June 14th, and the budget has been available for public inspection here at the Educational Services Building. The proposed budget document was presented to the Board of Education at the June 14th, 2018 meeting for review. It comes tonight for adoption in the form of a 2018-19 General Appropriations Act resolution, and the draft resolutions have been attached. And as you know, at our meeting last week, Ms. Minnick did the presentation for the 2018-19 budget. And so tonight we would ask that the board approve this budget with the understanding that as the 18-19 year goes along, we will bring budget amendments as necessary.
All right. I would entertain a motion. Mr. Cook?
I move that the 2018-19 original budget as presented be approved by the Novi Community School District Board of Education per the attached resolutions.
Support.
It's been moved by Mr. Cook and supported by Mr. Mena. Is there any additional discussion on the item? Mr. O'Connor?
I do have a couple of comments, again, missing last week, and I apologize for that. First of all, I have mixed emotions because I think it's sad when we have a public hearing on a budget and, you know, for $77 million plus and nobody shows up. I guess the good part of that is that there's really been so much trust instilled in this board and our administration when it comes to fiscal responsibility and what we do with the dollars. I guess there isn't, you know, a lot of interest in this, although I would argue this is, you know, one of the top 3 or 4 things that we do as a board. You know, having said that, you got to know, and especially coming off last night's Oakland County board meeting, we're in a special place when nobody shows up to a public hearing. I got to tell you, because, you know, there are a lot of school districts with 7, 6, 5, 4% fund balances, and there's 50, 60, 70, 80 people at budget hearings. It's very normal. In fact, not just in Oakland County, but around the state. So it's just a testament to how we've been managing our finances, and you know, although we got into a little bit of deficit spending this past year, we're still structurally sound and above our 10%. The other comment I wanted to make is, you know, I watched the videotape last week, and I'm glad there was a discussion on merit. As all of you know, merit is very important to me, and I know that many board members, you know, here really wanted to see budget merit, and quite frankly, more than just the $200,000 budgeted for merit this year. I, quite frankly, was going to vote against this budget going into tonight because I'm just so passionate about the merit issue, and I think it should be at least $300,000, if not $400,000. Having said that, I did talk to Dr. Matthews yesterday morning, and he assured me that based on the discussion that you had last week, and I appreciate you having the discussion without me here, that there's going to be follow-up and an in-depth discussion about what we're doing with merit pay, and that we do have the flexibility with budget amendments to add to that $200,000 if we choose as a board, you know, whether it be, you know, $300,000, $400,000. You know, clearly, I've said it from the very beginning. I think that earmarking $400,000 instead of $200,000 really sends a strong message that we as Novi schools are committed to changing a culture of compensation and really focusing on rewarding the best of the best teachers. I mean, that's what it's all about, in addition to the salaries that they get during contract negotiations. You know, I guess the question that we have to face as a board going forward is, are we really serious about changing that culture? We've begun that process, but do we really want to continue? And do we want to give more dollars to merit? I mean, you know, we're at, what, 10.47%. You know, we had a couple $100,000 with $77 million budget. We're at 10.2. So it's not like it's a major issue. Obviously, I say yes. I think it's important that we have these continued discussions and that we look at additional merit dollars. I'm just happy that those discussions are going to continue, and I hope I can get the support from the rest of the board members to bump that up going forward.
All right. Other comments, questions? Obviously, a lot of us discussed this last week. Seeing no additional, I will call the question. All those in favor of accepting the preliminary budget for 2018-19 as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same. Motion carries 6-0. Next, we have our administrative contracts renewal. Dr. Matthews.
Thank you, Ms. Murphy. The current administrative contract expires on June 30th, 2019. Based on their evaluations and their job performance, it is recommended that the superintendent be authorized to extend the following administrative contracts through June 30th of 2020. The high school principal, the high school assistant principal, we have 2 open positions at this point. The middle school principal, who is the new principal, Mr. Baker, middle school assistant principal, Meadows principals, the elementary principals, which we have 5 elementary positions, but only 4 are work for the district under contract. 1 is a contract outside the district. The Director of Finance, Director of Community and Adult Education, Director of Student Growth and Accountability, Director of Maintenance, Director of Student Services, Director of Transportation, Director of Athletics, Title I and ESL Coordinator, Early Childhood Coordinator, Adult and Alternative Education Coordinator, MTSS 504 Coordinator, and the Assistant Director of Maintenance Operation. The 2 assistant principal positions and the Marketing and Public Relations Specialist are not included on this list because the current administrators in those positions left the district, and we will bring new recommendations once those positions have gone through the hiring process. So this evening we would recommend that the board authorize the superintendent to renew those contracts. You have been included information on the assistant superintendents. A formal recommendation on those positions will come at the first meeting in August.
Oh, I did not realize that. Okay.
Tonight, it's just the listed administrators there.
All right. I would entertain a motion first. Would you like to ask a question?
Sure, thank you. Mrs. Murphy, forgive my ignorance in asking this. It seems odd to me that we would approve everyone all at once? Or is that just the way that it's done? Or what if there was a question about maybe a particular position or two positions? Is it all or nothing? Or are we allowed to have a discussion about a certain position if that was appropriate? I don't like the idea of saying, yep, everyone's in.
Would you like to address that, Dr. Matthews?
Or is that just the norm?
The kind of the historical process in most boards of education is that the evaluation of administrators is turned over to the superintendent
Okay.
and/or who the superintendent designates. I do not evaluate all of these administrators. I evaluate a certain portion of them. Dr. Weber evaluates some of them. Ms. Minnick evaluates some of them. And so, based on their recommendations to me, I then come to the board with a recommendation, and the board votes on the recommendation that I provide.
Okay.
If there is an individual concern, that typically is addressed kind of outside this process, and if it's a significant concern, then that is pulled out. But this is my recommendation to the board.
I understand that. That makes sense. Was there any position that was not recommended for renewal?
For this group, there was not.
Okay, thank you. I understand that.
Mr. O'Connell?
I'm glad to hear after 4 years I have an ally on this issue. I, for years, have been...
I didn't know that.
I have been thinking, I didn't know you were going to say what you were going to say. I, for years, have been saying that it should be done individually, and the superintendent has decided to do it collectively as a group. There have been times where we pulled out individuals over the last couple of years. There are times where we haven't. There have been times where, when we haven't, I've actually been forced to vote no because of one or two individuals. So I do think this is an odd way to do things. I do think it should be done individually, but we haven't done that historically. But you'll see my record. I've been voting no quite a bit, unfortunately, only because of one or two individuals. Because quite frankly, I support most of the administrators in our district and what they're doing.
So the time to bring up questions would have been before tonight, and then with whomever would be the person that's doing that evaluation.
Part of the process for any employee in the district is, that non-renewal needs to not be arbitrary and capricious is the language that's used in the law. And so it is assumed, because we have a rigorous evaluation process, that these recommendations are based on evidence that we have accumulated over the course of the year. If there are individuals who have concerns about that, it's appropriate to have conversations with the superintendent or the administrator who evaluates those people. But my belief is that based on the evidence accumulated over the course of the year, these recommendations are made, as opposed to isolated incidents that may occur over the course of the year that a board member or a community member may not like. And so, those are the kind of the legal issues surrounding it, that if a non-renewal is indeed voted on, you would have to demonstrate that it's not arbitrary and capricious. You'd also have to demonstrate that the person has been given the opportunity to improve.
So, right, so there's some time that needs to go into
Correct.
That makes sense. No, that makes sense, and that seems fair. And hopefully I'll be able to use that information in the future.
And actually, I believe it's a 90-day window, correct?
Correct.
I mean, the time to start these discussions, if they're concerned, would be around March 1st.
Got it.
Right.
But if I can, but not really now, because we've gone back to a 2-year rolling cycle. These contracts are getting extended from 1 year from expiration to 2 years.
Correct.
So we're never going to hit the 90-day window, and that rule really doesn't play anymore.
Well, it could apply. For example, next year, if we have an administrator that there is a concern about, we would not extend their, they would be pulled out.
Sure, in those
and-
circumstances, yeah.
In those circumstances, and just have a one-year contract.
Mhm.
That one-year contract would be their opportunity to demonstrate their improvement. And if they hadn't, then March of the following year, they would be given a notice of non-renewal, and then the board would vote on that.
How many times has that happened in the last, say, 5 years?
None.
Well,
Well, there has been an administrator who did not have their contract rolled over, and so there has been at least one that I can think of that was on a
So it's
one-year
not without
contract.
precedent?
It's not without
Okay,
precedent.
that's
Yeah,
okay.
one administrator had only a one-year contract, had the opportunity to demonstrate improvement. They demonstrated improvement, and so they're back on cycle.
Perfect.
right, are there any additional questions
Thank you, guys.
before we move forward? Mr. Cook?
I noticed Mr. Baker's on this
Yes.
list as a renewal. We basically gave him a brand-new contract last week. So I'm surprised he's on here as a renewal.
The point is valid. He's on here because he ends up being in the same cycle as everybody. Technically, I would agree that he's probably not a renewal. He was a current administrator. His contract is being extended through 2020, and so that's why he's here. But your point is well taken.
All right. All right. Could I have a motion on the administrative contracts, please? Mrs. Hood?
I move that the Novi Community School District Board of Education authorize the superintendent to renew the contracts of all listed administrators as noted.
Is there support?
Support.
It's been moved by Mrs. Hood and supported by Mr. Mena. There is additional discussion. Mr. Cook?
I've been very consistent since I've been on this board that because Dr. Matthews is evaluated one way and the administrators and everybody else is evaluated another way, and the linkage between the two evaluations is very slim, I have been very consistent and voted no on these contracts because I feel that we have a superintendent that is being directed by the board to do one thing, and the evaluation models are sending the staff and everybody else another direction. So I will not be supporting these renewals for that reason.
If there is no additional discussion, I will call the question. All those in favor of accepting the renewal of the contracts and authorizing the superintendent to do so, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-1. All right, and as you said, the assistant superintendent's contract renewals will come up in
Can-
August, but
August,
they're
yes.
there at that point?
I'm still confused. I had thought I saw that on the agenda. We can't vote on that tonight?
Well, the information's listed, but it was not presented last week for discussion, and so,
But neither were the administrators?
yeah, they were
Oh,
last
they
week.
were last week, okay.
And so, I think giving the information tonight and then voting on the first meeting in August would be fine. They're not going anywhere, I don't believe.
There's some openings in Oakland County. I wouldn't necessarily assume that at all. There are quite a few openings in Oakland County right now.
But why
Don't
would
be
you- why would-
telling them
Why would
that.
you leave Nova?
Don't be telling them that. All right.
Like they don't know.
Okay, so we will move on, and we will see that at our first meeting in August.
Correct.
On the contract renewals. The next is our NEA contract renewal. Dr. Matthews.
Thank you, Ms. Murphy. Tentative agreement has been reached with the Novi Education Association, and the administration would recommend the contract agreement with the NEA be approved. The NEA and district bargaining teams met on several occasions to negotiate a new collective bargaining agreement. The current Novi Education Association contract expired on June 30th, 2018. The administration and the Novi Education have reached a tentative agreement for the contract to run through July 2018 through June 30th, 2020. And I would turn it over to Dr. Kinzer to provide a few of the highlights of the new contract.
Thank you, Dr. Matthews. Just a few things, really. This was a very simple. We didn't take on a lot of topics. One that we did spend a lot of time on is Article 15 in the NEA contract, which deals with teaching hours and class load overages. So overages occur when established limits in class sizes are when it's necessary to exceed them. Sometimes circumstances put us in a situation where we have to, and these terms This is how we compensate teachers when they have class sizes that are too large. So we've streamlined the process and made it much more efficient. So a lot of time on the part of teachers and administration is not spent calculating and documenting and recording. In addition to agreeing to a more streamlined model, we also have agreed to form a collaborative committee made up of both teachers and administration to review next year, see how it works, and recommend any revision if it's necessary. Article 24, which is compensation, two pieces of that. First, the actual compensation model. Teachers who are eligible for step advancement shall advance one full step on the Appendix B1 salary schedule. Salary amounts at steps 15.5 through 27.5 shall be increased 0.5%, and salary amounts on step 28 shall be increased 1%. And then the other part of Article 24, new language that requires notification of intent to retire by established dates in order for NEA members to receive pay for unused sick leave.
Fantastic. Well, we're glad it was a relatively simple process, and certainly.
And I would like to thank Ms. Minnick and Dr. Kinzer for their efforts. They bore the brunt of the negotiation this year and sitting with the NEA, and so I appreciate the time and the effort they gave to that. They kept me informed, but clearly they were the ones that did most of the work.
I would also like to add that I really appreciate the collaborative approach of our teachers. They really were wonderful to work with, and the process, I think, served to help us build even closer bonds and trust.
Terrific. All right, well, I would entertain a motion on this. Mrs.
I'll do
Hood?
it.
Go ahead.
I move that the Novi Community School District Board of Education approve the tentative agreement reached with the Novi Education Association for the contract beginning July 1st, 2018 through June 30th, 2020.
Fantastic. Is there support?
Support.
It's been moved by Mrs. Hood and supported by Mr. Smith. Any additional comments or questions the board has? Mr. Cook? And then Mr. O'Connor.
Dr. Kinzer, you may not know this, but Dr. Matthews, when we entered into this contract, I do believe there was a lot of discussion on Article 15 and the teaching hours, teachers having to teach during their planning time and stuff like that. So we went back through and we revisited that again. Or am I mistaken?
The teaching hours and overage is in the same article, and so we focus more on the overage piece, not the teaching hour piece.
But the teaching hours remain the same as what it
Correct.
was previously, okay.
Okay, Mr. O'Connor?
So I really struggled with this one. This has been a tough decision for me because I really think that the negotiated contract settlement with the teachers is quite fair and very equitable for both sides, actually. I think it's more than reasonable. But as you know, I expressed a major concern, quite frankly, about 4 weeks ago when the negotiations started about extending the contract to 2 years, something that hasn't been mentioned here. And I've been going back and forth because I think it's a good deal. But I just don't understand the logic behind a 2-year contract. I just don't get it. I don't believe it's in the best interest of the school district when we've got all our union contracts ending in the same year. And quite frankly, I think it's poor management of the contract process, and it clearly is not a best practice from a management perspective. And it worries me. I've been going back and forth. Again, I want to reiterate that I think this is a fair deal from a salary perspective. I just don't understand the logic for giving another year. I just don't think it's good practice. And because of that, I'm going to vote against this. I'm sickened to do it, but it's not in the best interest of the district. If it was a 1-year deal, which is what this was originally outlined to be, I'd be more than happy to support it, but I just can't, given the way this has been outlined.
I can address that in part. This is the end of my 7th year in the district. Every year since I've been in the district, we've negotiated. Negotiation takes time, effort, planning. And so part of the rationale for extending the contract to 2 years, and it puts all the contracts expiring in the same year, but What it does is it frees up 18-19 from us having to negotiate. And so we can focus on other issues related to the business of the district, focus on ensuring that we continue to have Ms. Minnick and Dr. Kinzer pay attention to other issues other than preparing for and actually engaging in negotiations. And so that was the primary rationale for us to extend this contract to 2 years. It was to free up time so that Dr. Kinzer and Ms. Minnick and myself would not have to engage in negotiations on a yearly basis, but we would have a year to focus on other issues related in the district. And so your concern is well noted, and I understand. There's a wage reopener with this, and so we have an extended compensation past 18-19, so there'll be a bit of negotiation next year related to wage reopener, but that's a much simpler process than negotiating contract. And so we believe that the extension allows us, especially Ms. Minnick and Dr. Kinzer, to have some time given back to them to focus on other issues in the district.
And I can appreciate that it's more time to go through the negotiating process. I totally understand that. I just think it's dangerous to the district as a whole. I mean, there's no doubt that this would take more administrative time to go through the negotiating process. I'm sorry that would happen. And I know your time's valuable. I just, we have a financial responsibility to this district to make sure that we're at 10% and that we're putting as much dollars into the classroom. And I don't want that damaged. I mean, in essence, I believe from a management standpoint, we're giving up leverage. And I think that can be very damaging in the future.
I would argue that because we have the wage reopener, there's past this year, there's no additional financial burden that will be placed on the district as we move forward into 19-20. But I appreciate your perspective, Mr. Campbell.
All right. It has been moved and supported. Is there additional comments or questions? Mr. Cook?
So there is a wage reopener in this contract for next year.
Correct. As we head into 19-20. But it's not the full negotiation, so that'll, we think, be a streamlined process.
All right. All right. I will, Mr. Cook. Mr.
I could be
Smith.
Mr. Cook.
Mr. Smith.
I share some of Dennis's concern originally when we sat in executive session, and you're always more research than I am on many things, Dennis. From learning that there was a wage reopener, that seemed like it was a protection for us from an expense standpoint. So I wasn't concerned about that. And it's also been my understanding from research that I did that really every year there's not a contentious battle between the school board and the budget and the teachers union. It seems like every year it goes pretty smoothly, which maybe speaks to the unique nature of teachers, and the board and the relationship and the trust that's been built. And I'm open to trying new things, even if it might be out of my comfort zone. So initially this was out of my comfort zone, but it sounded like, based on facts of history, we weren't risking too much. And with the wage reopener, we always could go back and have some financial leverage, to use your word, which I think is important. So I'm trusting the unanimous opinion of the cabinet and Dr. Matthews that this is going to allow us to focus on other things, which then may better help the kids, which is a good end result. So that's why I'm supporting the decision.
Yeah, my only, and I appreciate your comments, my only concern with what you said is when you talk about from a historical perspective, you weren't serving on the board during the lost decade, during 2007, 2008, 2009, 2010, when we were cutting budgets at $1 million here, $2 million there, and it was rather contentious. So that's my concern going forward, and I appreciate your comments. That's my concern going forward, that if that were to happen, hopefully it won't, but if that were to happen, I would not want to get into that situation, but I understand where you're coming from.
My glass is half full.
All right. I will call the question. All those in favor of approving the Novi Education Association contract renewal, please say aye.
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 Those opposed?
No.
Motion carries 5-1. Next on our agenda is the Theater Friends of Novi Schools gift to the district. Dr. Matthews.
Thank you, Ms. Murphy. We bring this tonight. It has not been previewed at a previous meeting, but we bring this because we have had a request from the Theater Friends of Novi Schools. So on December 4th, 2014, the Board of Education accepted a donation from the Friends of Novi Theaters in the amount of $13,186.18 for sponsorship of Theater Friends of Novi Schools to be split between Novi Middle School 60% and Novi High School 40% for their
Excuse me. That's a typo again. That's supposed to be middle
40,
school 40
right.
and high school 60%.
for their theater programs.
Yep.
The Theater Friends of Novi Schools group had not been formed at this time. In 2017, the group became a 501c3 tax-exempt entity and are now requesting that the board return the donation of $13,186.18 to them. Because this is our last regular board meeting of 2017-18, this is presented for information and for approval at tonight's meeting per the board's decision. And so this is about a decision that was made several years ago when a previous theater group disbanded. They gave us the money. They have now reformed, and so we're requesting that those funds be returned to them. At the initial, we bring this because at the initial meeting, it was gifted to the district, and there was nowhere in the minutes that it said it would be returned when they formed their organization. And so we could return it, but we believe it's appropriate to have the board do official action before it is returned.
Okay, Mr. O'Connor.
So I'll move that the Novi Community Board of Education return the donation of $13,186.18 in a 60-40 split, 60% for the high school, 40% for the middle school, to the theater groups of Novi Schools Group.
Support.
It's been moved by Mr. O'Connor and supported by Mr. Cook. Is there any additional comments or questions about this item? All right. I will say I went back and reviewed the tape of the meeting because it was really clear that what the intention was. So I think that I know I was the acting president at that meeting. I think, Mr. O'Connor, you were on the board. You guys were both on the board at that point in time. I think our recollection is all the same, that it was intended to start a theater group. So I'm certainly supportive of this. So did you have a comment, Mr. Cook?
Well, I have a question. They've formed a 503c corporation, or 501c3 corporation, or nonprofit. How many of our other groups are that way? Or is this one unique in the way they run it?
Ms. Minnick may know. My belief is the athletic boosters are that way. The band booster group is that way. Most of the PTOs are not that way. We are going to be in the process of encouraging them to become that way, but I'll let Ms. Minnick address that.
You're correct. The athletic boosters are 501c3, as is the band boosters. My understanding is that most of the PTOs are 501c3s, but we recently, in the last few years, became their fiscal agent, so to speak, where we deposit their funds and disperse their funds. I don't know of any other booster groups.
The orchestra boosters?
There's an orchestra.
Those would be 501c3 as well.
Okay. All right. Well, without further ado, I will call the question. All those in favor of returning the donation to the Theater Friends of Novi Schools Group, which is now being called STAGE. So I don't know if we need to make that change in the minutes. I don't know what the thing is. But anyways, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same. Motion carries 6-0. All right. Next, we have no information discussion items this evening.
Correct.
But this is our second opportunity for comments from the audience. This would be a time for anyone in the audience to address the board on any item in our jurisdiction. We would ask that you limit your comments to 5 minutes, fill out a green card prior to coming to the podium. And seeing none, I will turn to Mr. O'Connor.
I just have one question of clarification. Shouldn't the assistant superintendent contracts be part of information discussion tonight, so we can vote on them in August, like
Oh.
you had said? I'm just clarifying, so that we
That
don't have to
actually
go through
would
this.
make sense.
That would make sense. And so you'll note that the assistant superintendent contracts are here, and they would be extended through 2020 with the rest of the administrative group. We would bring those on August 9th to the board for approval.
Okay.
And those are just the standard 2-year roll?
Correct.
Yeah, thank you.
Is there just other discussion about those contracts that the board would like to have at this time? Seeing none, we will move on to the superintendent's report. Dr. Matthews.
Thank you, Ms. Murphy. We had a community member address the board last week with concerns about the Novi High School boys basketball program. Dr. Kinzer had a good conversation with this community member this week. Since a public request was made, I would like to respond this evening to some of the issues that were raised. He raised concerns about evaluation. In our contract, the teacher's contract, it states co-curricular leaders and coaches will receive a written evaluation each year during their first 3 years in the position, and thereafter on a 3-year rotating basis. The second concern was about a perceived conflict of interest. In checking with our attorney, he states, as long as the middle school teacher conducts himself in a professional manner and is not using his position to benefit himself at the other school, Section 5.8 of the employee handbook would not be applicable. The third concern was the financial state of the basketball program. In speaking with the parent, Dr. Kinzer directed him to Mr. Gordon about that issue. The fourth concern was the number of playing dates last summer versus this summer. In checking with Coach Sinawe via email, he identified for me the following. The varsity had a total of 15 days of basketball activities last summer, which were a combination of games and practices, and all of those took place in June. We have not had any this year because we have not had a boys basketball coach, and so we assume that once a boys basketball coach is identified that he would start some summer activities. Finally, he requested that no moves take place until these issues are addressed. I felt that we needed to continue moving forward with hiring a basketball coach so that if we could have summer activities this year, we could have them. Interviews have been held this week, but no decisions have been made at this time. And part of that rationale is because a couple of the people who have interviewed are also being interviewed for teaching positions at the high school as well. And so their acceptance of the coaching position may be determined by whether or not they get the teaching position as well. That was information from that he requested, and so I thought I would make a public comment on that this week. Finally, I would like to take a moment to remind the Board of Education what a wonderful year we had this year in Novi. We had 39 National Merit semifinalists, the most of any high school in the state of Michigan. Novi High School celebrated its 50th homecoming this year. The Novi Community School District buses received a perfect rating from the Commercial Vehicle Enforcement Division of the Michigan State Police. Lisa Fenchel, the Novi Middle School's principal, was honored as the Region 7 Principal of the Year by the Michigan Elementary and Middle School Principal Association. Tanya Bouchard, who works in the Community Education Office, was honored as the Support Staff Person of the Year by the Michigan Association of Community and Adult Education. Linda Chianfera, Director of Career Prep High School, was honored with the Outstanding Educator Award by the Michigan Association of Community and Adult Education. Novi High School's volleyball team won its third consecutive Division I state championship. Novi High School's Aaron O'Leary was named Miss Volleyball by the Michigan Interscholastic Volleyball Coaches Association. We had 16 perfect ACT scores at the high school, or SAT scores, at the high school. We had 17 AP capstone students. We had 14 IB diploma students. Novi High School's marching band finished 4th in the state. 3 Novi High School students won awards in the annual Detroit International Auto Show poster contest. Brian Langley, Novi High School teacher, and Lana Zembrowski, Novi Meadows teacher, became National Board Certified teacher. Novi High School fielded a Novi Unified basketball team for the first time ever. Novi Middle School Library Media Center won the state's 2017-18 Model 21st Century School Library Award. Novi High School Frog Force 503 robotics teams qualified for the World Championships hosted this year in Detroit. Novi High School's boys basketball team advanced to the Division I state semifinal for the first time ever and played in the Breslin Center at Michigan State University. Novi High School's Kirsten Betts was named the Oakland Schools Career and Technical Education Outstanding Student of the Year. Lisa Rice, Stephanie Boersma, and Heidi Pendergraf were honored at as Novi Community School District Teachers of the Year. Novi High School's Hannah Hood Blacksell won the Division I high school high jump championship. Novi High School had 15 students selected for the All-State Band and Orchestra. Novi High School graduated 512 seniors out of 514 seniors this year. Our Feed the Need program, in partnership with the Novi Rotary and community partners, opened again this past Monday. And finally, the Novi girls soccer team won the Division I state championship with a 1-0 victory over Grand Blanc. So it's been a great year in the Novi School District, and I wish everyone a great summer and look forward to the start of the 2018-19 school year.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Thank you. Thank you for that thorough recap of the year.
It's really impressive. I mean, how many superintendents can brag like you can?
There are not many. There are not many.
That's fantastic. I'm not sure how you guys are going to follow that, but next is our administrative reports. Ms. Minnick.
I have no report for you this evening.
It's tough to follow. Dr. Kinsey.
I'm not going to try to follow it.
And Dr. Weber.
Oh, he'll
Come on
follow.
now, who's saying our public schools aren't doing it, right? With what Dr. Matthews just said, and the kids in this community and the parents. But tomorrow, 555 summer school students will report to Novi High School. 555. 240 pre-K through, actually, believe it or not, or through 6th grade on the refresher courses and additional courses. 300 kids, including my own, and I know Ms. Hoppenstedt's kids, will be engaged in care this summer. And that is just a testament, again, to a community school district. And that's Linda Chinfera running our summer school program, and really Bob Stee at the helm of that. Atlas Rubicon, the first week school lets out, we have a high school media center that's filled with K-12 teachers working on curriculum, building it, getting better. It's our 8th June doing this. And our staff comes in again on that Monday. There were 85 people there doing work. The last day of school was Friday. CPI training, or Crisis Prevention Institute, 64 staff trained this week. That means almost our entire transportation staff, as well as all of our staff at ECEC. So this really helps us to deal with youngsters that are acting out physically and how to restrain them without harming them and protect our staff. I'd like to look back on the year as well and thank Jill Minnick and Gary Kinzer. So Jill is leaving for Japan Saturday, and her commitment to our community and learning about our community over the past year has been great to see and watch, and I think you've had a heck of a first year. And Dr. Kinzer, we couldn't call you Dr. Kinzer when we hired you, but earning your doctorate this year, really being an incredible listener and pushing my team to be better is something I appreciate. I'd like to thank the Novi school community, parents, teachers, Board of Education for their commitment to our kids. The contract that was settled approved 2 additional math interventionists, 2 additional literacy interventionists this year, an additional student support person at the high school to attend to our students' emotional well-being, as well as Section 504, an additional instructional coach, 1.5 additional ESL teachers to better accommodate our burgeoning ESL population, and 6 additional staff members to take care and mitigate class size issues. We couldn't do this without the community that we have and the support we have, and it really is stunning. And it's amazing to see our community public schools be a true community from birth well past that. Finally, I would like to personally thank the folks I get to work with on a daily basis, and that's our Office of Academics team of Bob Stee, Linda Chinfera, Ann Hansen, Alice Smith, Shaylee Patel, Darby Hoppenstedt, Jeff Dinkelman, Melissa Matson, and Melanie Rutkowski. I've been fortunate to work in a few places in many roles, and I can confidently say I have never had a team come together in the way that the team I work beside came together this year. So it's been a great year, and as Steve had mentioned, when you list those numbers and have that, we certainly have a lot to be proud of here in Novi and our community public schools. So thank you.
Fantastic. Terrific. Next, we have board communications. Opportunity for the board to share things. That, things have slowed down a little bit since last week. I'm not sure. I know a lot of us were at the soccer game, which was very exciting, and, right? Exciting things. And Mr. O'Connor?
Last night at the Oakland County School Board Association meeting, there was a more than an hour presentation from SEMCOG, and the PowerPoints will be in your board books either tomorrow or next week. It's interesting to know the SEMCOG is that seven county region, and they do a lot of projections, planning, et cetera, and the report is based on what projections they see go up to 2045, and it was really an interesting report. You'll get the PowerPoints, but one of the things of interest that I wanted to share with you is that of all the Oakland County school districts, only Novi and South Lyon are projected to have student population growth.
Wow.
South Lyon more than us, we've got slight growth, but all the rest are in decline. And we've heard it 10,000 times, but they talked, and quite frankly, it comes down to, more, I don't mean to be morbid, but there's more deaths than births. We need to have more people making babies out there. But anyhow, the other thing they talked about that we've talked a lot about at the board is the whole skills gap, and in terms of the job market in Michigan. They talked at length about STEM curriculum, the fact that advanced manufacturing, IT, computer services, really getting ready to really meet the needs of that technology-driven mobility industry. The autonomous cars. I mean, that's really where we're at, and Novi's the hub of that. So they reiterated that again last night. So it was an interesting report. You'll see the PowerPoint.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that, Mr. Connor. Other board members, Mr. Mena?
Yeah, as you mentioned, I did attend the girls' soccer championship last Friday. It was just an absolute fantastic game. It really topped off a great season for them. Topped off a lot of great things that happened in our district and in athletics. So congratulations to the young ladies. I think they did a fantastic job and certainly represented our district well. Also attended the football fantasy camp sponsored by Mr. Burnside and quite a few other folks on Monday. Again, another great program that takes place at the school. I could tell the young children and young men and women who attended that really enjoyed it, and it was just a great place to be on Monday night. I got the opportunity, I'm almost ashamed to say this, but I finally got the opportunity after all these years hearing about the Feet to Need to finally attend it this week, and I was very impressed. I spent a little bit of time this week at Village Oaks, sitting down with some of the kids, playing some games with them. So, again, thank you for all of the folks who make that happen, especially Tia Marie Sanders. Does a fantastic job with that program. And lastly, and folks may have noticed that there's been a lot of traffic at the high school parking lot recently. We've been hosting a marching band.
Drum and bugle corps.
Drum and bugle corps. Maybe they're like a marching band, but okay. Anyway, the Phantom Regiment out of, I believe they're out of the Chicago area possibly. I believe they're a group that Mr. Horrigan used to belong to. And they are actually probably competing as we speak right now at Ford Field in downtown Detroit. So really had a good time meeting those folks and talking with them and getting a really good appreciation for the effort and the funding that's involved to put something that large together. So I thought it was great that we were able to help them out. They basically told me that staying at Novi was like staying at the Taj Mahal compared to all the other locations that have hosted them. I mean, generally speaking, you have all these people who are sleeping on gymnasium floors. They had an entire field house here, so they were spread out more than most places they've stayed at. So I was very proud that we were able to do that, and I thank them for also allowing the public to come and watch them practice in the evenings this week while they were there. And that's all I have.
Other board members?
I was going to add a little bit to that too. I was there last night with watching the Phantom, or listening to them, and we have had recent graduates who have gone and been involved with the Phantom Regiment, and they are out of Rockford, Illinois. But they have 6 buses and 5 semis and they travel all over. So when they're done at Ford Field tonight, they pack up and they head to Ohio, and I think they camp in some gymnasium down there for 4 days, and then they perform, and then they're on the road again. So it is a traveling something. It is incredible.
Wow.
Anyway, very impressive.
Caravan.
Yeah.
There you go. Fantastic. Right, I know we will be meeting again on Saturday to go over Dr. Matthews' evaluation. He provided us quite the binder. I'm assuming that yours was delivered to you. He did provide some feedback. I know in the past what we have done is Dr. Matthews has kind of gone over the areas with us. He provided us feedback in the notes, which was pretty much what he would have presented. I would encourage you, if you do have questions that have already come up, if you can get any of those to Dr. Matthews so he can prepare for Saturday morning, that'd be great. If not, obviously, Saturday morning, he will go over those with us.
Actually, I do have one, because I've gone through the binder, surprise. I didn't see any documentation based on the student growth model. I saw the score, but was there, at least in my binder, there was no paper.
I'll look back, because
Could you check?
yes, I will check.
Okay, if you could, and maybe my binder didn't get it or whatever, but if I could have it before Saturday, I'd
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Oh, certainly.
Okay, I'll make a note of that. So, yeah, so then just if there's questions that he might have to prepare something else for or whatever, we'll provide, that would be great. Well, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Unless there's anything further.
So moved.
Mrs. Hood has moved that we adjourn. Is there support?
Support.
Supported by Mr. Cook. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries 6-0. We are adjourned for the evening.
For the 17th.